Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, November 14th, 2025, and today we are doing things a little bit different. We knew we weren't going to be able to make a normal show this morning, so we decided to try something a little different. Earlier this year, someone had asked if we could start putting together episodes about specific subjects from past work that we've done on the show, a sort of roundup or best of episode, because, well, at this point, there is just a ton of information on this show, and it would be daunting for any one person to go through all of it. So when we have to miss a day like we do today, and we know ahead of time, we're going to put together shows like this. And so for today's podcast, we're going to talk tools, which might be especially poignant headed into the tool giving and buying season. So we're going to talk seeders, hand tools, and the BCS walk-behind tractor, and maybe more. We shall see. So let's do it. Being that it is Thursday, as is sometimes but not consistently a tradition, we are going to do a Q&A show where we try to catch up on a few questions from our wonderful Patreon members. So we'll hop right on that. Our first question of the day comes from Patreon member Daniela Williams, who writes, quote, "Loving the daily show. It keeps me entertained while grinding out a run on the treadmill." Thanks, Daniela. "We are 2 years into market gardening, and the idea of getting a BCS is very appealing. We have 4 market gardens totaling just under 1 acre, so each one is pretty small. Using a tractor isn't practical most of the time. I went to the BCS site to get an idea for cost and was overwhelmed. So many base tractors to choose from, and then the large array of attachments. Do you have recommendations on which tractors would be a better fit, or suggestions on how to narrow down the list? And are there any attachments you'd recommend to get? Good bang for the buck, or stay away from, not worth the investment, or surprisingly useful?" End quote. Love it. Great question and questions, Daniela. For the uninitiated, BCS means it's a brand of a walk-behind tractor. And in the name of full disclosure, BCS is often a sponsor of our work. We did buy a BCS and pay for the whole thing on our own before they were a sponsor, so it is also something with which I understand the daunting investment. I should say from the outset that this purchase will come down to a lot of what your systems are, and I will discuss that presently. But the first thing that stands out about your question is that you have 4 market gardens totaling less than 1 acre. So I'm assuming here that you either have a single property with 4 different plots, or you have maybe more of an urban farm where the plots are separated. If the plots are substantially far apart, a BCS can work, but it may be a lot to lug around on a trailer or whatever from spot to spot. Having a good mower at each spot and a tilter would cost you less money and be significantly easier to move around. Now, if they are all relatively near each other, like on the same plot where you don't have to load and unload the tractor every time, then a BCS or Grillo walk-behind tractor makes sense. All right, so your implements will determine what size of walk-behind tractor you're going to get. So I would start with the implements. Some implements require a bigger motor. The 2 I use the most personally, especially once the garden is set up, is the flail mower and the power harrow. The flail mower feels essential for our systems, at least on our farm. It chops the material and puts it right back down into the bed, which is very helpful for us. The other implement we use a decent amount is the power harrow, but considerably less than the flail mower. It's what I use to establish cover crops and sometimes to prep seed beds depending on their condition, especially in areas on our farm that I manage primarily with cover crops as opposed to like a compost mulch. However, you could get a smaller tractor and use a tiller with a precision depth roller attached to keep the tiller from going more than a couple inches down into the soil, like a tilter tool, but on a tractor. And not only would that save you money, but that would allow you to get a smaller tractor as well. The other thing I would recommend is just to call someone from like Joel from Earth Tools if you're on the East Coast. Pretty much everyone at Earth Tools really knows their stuff. And what I like about Joel in particular is he just has no interest in selling you stuff you don't need. He's somewhat of a legend in the small farming world for it and will just shoot you straight. They will also make sure you get anything that you need to make that particular tool run at its best. They are not sponsors, just saying all this stuff because I think they're good at what they do. I'm definitely a fan of our BCS tractor, and it's been going hard for I don't know, over 10 years now, despite my best efforts to kill it. But whether it makes sense for you just depends on your systems. It really comes down to what you need. So it's hard for me to say what implements do and don't make sense or what's the most bang for the buck. For you, it may make more sense to just sit down and ask yourself, what jobs do you really need or want a tractor to help you with? Because you may find that it's really hauling that you need more help with, or just mowing, or something else that a walk-behind tractor maybe can do, but so can other less expensive tools. Or maybe it's composting, and a BCS is just never going to be effective in moving large quantities of materials. That's a big tractor job with a front-end loader, or a Bobcat, or a Dingo, or whatever. Fortunately for you, unlike a lot of new growers who often build their systems around their equipment, with 2 years experience already, you can presumably build your equipment around your needs and your systems, which is a great advantage. You can narrow down what you need, and that way you don't go $10,000 or $15,000 in debt for a tool that could have cost you a few hundred. Anyway, I love this. It's a great question, and I hope I've been somewhat helpful. Others can feel free to add their 2 cents in the comments section. Up next, we will change gears. Just going to let that one hang there for a second. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by High Mowing Organic Seeds. High Mowing Organic Seeds is celebrating their 30th anniversary with 47 fabulous new varieties for 2026. Highlights include downy mildew-resistant cucumbers, a poppy that looks like cotton candy, and 12 new tomato varieties. High Mowing offers more than 750 varieties of certified organic, non-GMO vegetables, flowers, herbs, and cover crops, all trialed for optimal performance in organic growing systems. High Mowing has the professional quality seeds and supportive grower reps to get you from seed to harvest. Visit highmowingseeds.com to request a catalog and use code 26NOTILL, all one word, 26NOTILL, for 10% off your order of $100 or more. That's highmowingseeds.com. All right, back to the show. As is our pseudo tradition on Thursdays, especially in the spring when the questions are plenty, I try to get a little caught up on your all's Patreon questions. So today's first Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Adam Van Queek, who asks, quote, I noticed you use both the Jang seeder and the Earthway seeder. Do you use each seeder for certain crops? Which of the 2 seeders would be worth the initial investment for new farmers? Also, when you have participated in farmers markets, how did you keep your canopy from blowing away from the high winds? End quote. Okay, so both great questions here. I think what I will do with these questions is actually take them both separately, because there is a lot to say about each, and certainly enough on tents for its own segment. So we'll save that for segment 2. Let's start with the question about the seeders. Indeed, we use both the Jang seeder and the Earthway seeder on our farm. The Earthway is a simple push seeder listed at just under like $170 right now, and it looks like it comes with about 7 plates with options of buying a few more for like $50. So for under $225, you can get the whole shebang. The Jang seeder, the JP1, by contrast, is currently listed at $479 and comes with 6 rollers. Additional rollers are about $30 a piece, so the investment is about double. Now, the Jang is a precision seeder and singulates seeds really well. Singulate being a word I don't think is really recognized by most or maybe any dictionaries, but growers use it to mean drop 1 seed at a time. And it can be very, very efficient. If you plan on doing a substantial amount of seeding, the Jang is a great and efficient tool, and it is kind of a must-have for most commercial production where seeding is a big priority. I love it, especially with the double disc opener attachment. It's very fast. It puts seeds down really evenly. However, the Earthway is a great tool for the price, and most commercial growers I know at very least have one for larger seeds like cover crops and beans and peas and that sort of stuff. I know that Daniel Mays of Frith Farm has talked a lot about using his Earthway for everything for years. It is a very simple and straightforward tool. I have very few issues with it. It has some limitations in terms of planting density, and it will literally crush certain seeds, namely pelleted seeds. But with enough practice and the right seeds, it is a totally usable tool. For beginners, there is no shame in starting with an Earthway for everything, and it can save you a few $100 out of the gate while you learn what the market needs and what its limitations are for your particular production. Start with a simple tool like the Earthway and do as much as you can with it. And that will help you to better understand what you may or may not be missing out on with something like more sophisticated like the Jang. or some other seeder. Now, speaking of, there are other seeders out there as well, like the 4-row pinpoint seeder or the 6-row pinpoint seeder. These require much better bed preparation than the Jang and the Earthway to be effective, but for baby greens and other crops, these pinpoint seeders are really nice seeders. There cannot be any trashiness to the bed for them to work, and it must be firmed in like with a bed roller, something just roll over top of it, make it nice and flat and firm to have the greatest efficacy with those pinpoint seeders. I've also used the Haas, and it's a fine seeder as well. It does come with a double disc on its own. Just you have to buy the double disc for the Jang. This one comes with it, which is nice. But I just don't love the hopper. It's a little finicky, and it takes a little while to switch them out. There are also versions of the Jang with multiple hoppers, the JP3, the JP5, and JP6, the number denoting how many hoppers, thus the number of rows it will plant at a time. JP6 does 6. But again, unless you are doing a lot of direct seeding, those are probably overkill for most of you, especially at that price. An Earthway is a nice step up from just hand seeding, and you can always decide later if that's tool enough for you. Anyway, I hope that helps answer question number 1 here, Adam. We'll tackle the second part of your question in segment 2, BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand say they grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. Today's episode is also brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. All right, back to the show. Today's first Patreon question comes from Patreon member Gasper Mestas, who writes, quote, "Hello, I am brand new to farming and will attempt to do dry farming. We are on half an acre, but our small house lives in the middle of it. We live in the high desert Southwest. Given a budget of a few $100s, what should I focus on for tools and equipment? I know there was a comprehensive tool video, but I wasn't able to determine the hierarchy of what should come first," end quote. Okay, so great question. And obviously, some of this will depend on the scale you would like to grow on and the current condition of the soil and your markets and those sorts of things. But I will give you what I personally would look at first. So I did a show about the parts of a farm to invest in back in like December, November. I think it was like in the 50s of this show. So whatever that would have been. I'll find it and put it in the show notes. And there's also a thread at the No-Till Growers Forum on this exact subject that will help as well. Those will give you some good guidelines for what to think about when it comes to what you're going to purchase for each specific part of farming. I guess next, you probably need to think about some soil prep stuff. I've often said I could run my farm on a trowel, a good shovel, a rake, a stirrup hoe, and a wheelbarrow, and I pretty much stand by that. I mean, it's not the most efficient, but you could get by pretty far for pretty long that way. And sure, it's nice to have a few tools and options like a broad fork and maybe a tilter and different sizes of and types of hose, a gritter. I love my gritter, but just those few things will get you pretty far to start. For harvest, a knife and some totes is a fine starting point as well. Not sure if you're going to be selling the produce. It sounds like you're starting a farm, but if so, you'll have to think about washing and packing. For washing, staying on the bare minimum front, get a large food-safe wash tote and a couple hoses. You will also need a way to dry the produce, so some sort of drying rack as well, either built yourself or prefab, though prefab will likely be more expensive. If you're drying greens, you can convert an old washing machine to a salad spinner or buy one of those hand-cranked ones, but those are less effective and can be more expensive. I've heard of people using mesh food-safe bags and spinning those over their heads, like literally just like, I don't know, like a sling to dry the greens as a lo-fi solution. I have never tried that, but for a small amount of greens, sure. For 50 or 100 pounds, that would be a lot of work. It'd be a lot of spinning. You'd get really strong, but it'd be a lot of spending. For cooling, on a small scale, you can get pretty far with a large refrigerator or two, or buy a CoolBot and AC unit and just shove them in an unused closet or something, or just freeze bottles of water and use those to cool off large hunting coolers. Like we have these large coolers that we bring to market, and we just use frozen water bottles in there to kind of keep them cool through the day. Now, if you do plan to sell, you'll need to think about not only what you plan to pack the vegetables into, but marketing equipment as well. So like tents and tables, etc. You will need a scale also. Tools and equipment wise, that's a good list to start with. Obviously, there are things like seeders and mowing equipment that you'll need. Any sort of seed starting stuff, that just depending on if you want to buy your plants to start or if you want to start them yourself. I really recommend going through that post at the forum and kind of just taking notes as you go to each individual part of farming. So yeah, tools and equipment wise, that's a pretty good list to start with. As you can see, it's unfortunately not as simple as just buy these few things, because like I've said before, starting a farm is like not just starting a business, but starting a business that also produces the raw ingredients for what it sells, which most businesses do not begin there. I mean, many businesses don't ever get there. Most businesses outsource their sort of widget production, buying in things they need to make their product. Not us. We grow the widgets. We do it all. Everything from production to marketing. Farming is a bonkers business in that way. Again, I know I harp on these things a lot, but there is no easy way to break into this business with no or low capital. But it is, it's possible. It's just a lot of work. We did it. It sucked, but it definitely can be done if you're willing to put the energy into it and willing to start somewhere low and have a goal of what you need each step along the way. Now, if you're just trying to garden and maybe slowly move into farming, you can totally do it for pretty cheap and slowly acquire more as you grow. I also cannot emphasize enough how valuable it is to just do an enterprise budget and write out the crops you want to grow, like each crop that you're planning to grow, and then what you will need for each of those and how much it will cost both upfront and annually to produce each one individually and then all of them together. Treat the farm like a business, because that is exactly what it is, even if it is also, so much more than that. Great question and best of luck. I hope I was at least a little bit helpful. All right, we're going to take a quick break. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Marble Seed. The Marble Seed Organic Farming Conference attracts a wide range of regenerative and organic farmers for 3 days of skill development and community building. Farmer Drew Kramer said, "Going to Marble Seed was so invigorating at a time when I needed it most. I picked up tools I'm already using." The conference is the final week in February in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Early registration opens December 4th at conference.marbleseed.org. That's conference.marbleseed.org. All right, back to the show. Today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Brad Liston, who writes, quote, "Hello, Farmer Jesse. As we are ramping up to another growing season and trying to make the best of the downtime, do you have any tips or tricks for tool maintenance for either motor or man-powered tools? Any specific sharpening tools you found that work well? Maybe some of them to watch out for if they are too much of a gimmick. Do you maintain or treat wooden handle tools at all? I saw firsthand last year that sharp shovels or digging instruments used for planting or weeding are indeed very helpful. Thanks for all the info. As always, love the show." End quote. Okay, so great questions, Brad, and thank you. So for sure, the time is running out for you to do your tool maintenance, or at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, and actually not have to do it when you have, 100 or 200 other things that you should be working on, like it will be in a couple months for us. Do I have any tricks, though? I'm not sure I have any tricks per se, except that especially when it comes to machinery, just do it correctly. Like if your tractor goes down mid-season, that's a huge blow and can be a massive disruption. And what actually happens is that you never have the time to do whatever it needs properly. Your best chance at staving that off is right now. Even if it means taking your tractor to someone who can do the proper maintenance, that same person will be far too busy to just bust out your problem in the summer because, well, they will be swamped with other machines and other people's problems to work on. So if you don't know how to do the maintenance, find someone who does before the season gets rolling. For wooden handles, I like to hit them with linseed oil at least once per year. I also usually have an extra handle on hand to swap out should one of my tools break. These handles are not super expensive, and it's really nice if one snaps to just have another one you can pop on real quick so you don't have to stop what you're doing for very long. As for sharpening tools, I think having a good whetstone around is nice, and we do have one that I use relatively frequently, but I find I don't use it as much as I use the small diamond hone from Johnny's for most of my like hand tools. In fact, I typically keep one of those in my pockets at all times just to tune up the hose or my harvest knives or whatever as I go. Like you said, sharp tools make a huge difference. There's nothing more futile than beating away at a weed with a dull hoe or trying to cut lettuce with a dull knife. But yes, do everything you possibly can think of that isn't gardening right now while you have the time. Sharpen knives and mower blades, change the oil in the tractor and the mower, organize the tools so that they are easy to find in the season, lubricate all of the implements, oil the handles, charge the batteries. You will absolutely have to fix stuff in the middle of the season, so it also doesn't hurt to have an assortment of screws and or nails on hand just in case. Also, get a hardware store list going now. Traveling to the hardware store, for one thing, is wildly inefficient. I like to keep a running list going so that I just add to it as the season goes, and whenever I absolutely need something, I just go get it all at once. Anyway, I hope that's helpful, and I'm sure some of the many more machine-headed nerds out there who follow this show will have more input for the comment section. All right, I hope you enjoyed that Roundup episode. If there are other topics that you know that we've covered that you'd like us to put a whole show together about, let us know in the comment section. Otherwise, everyone have a great weekend. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work, and do that soon if you want it to be delivered by the holidays. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of November, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Kyle Richardville, Patrick Weaver, Alex and Oliver, Bill King, and Ian at Grindstone Farms. All right, so you will remember from our story this week, all Governor Ginger wants is someone to identify this plant that she has in her backyard, and all of the ecologists that she's, asked to do this to sort of identify it just up and disappear on her. Being a plant nerd, this is deeply frustrating. So she hires a private eye to help get to the bottom of it, and just a couple days later discovers that someone has dug up her dang plant. So not only does she not know the name of it, she doesn't even have it anymore. That's it. She's had enough. So she goes to the university office of the first ecologist, and the director there says that the ecologist had just quit a few months earlier. Same thing with the others. And, the governor's sitting there pondering what could have happened when she sees it on the news. A team of local ecologists have discovered a plant that can mine gold. Plants, known for their bioaccumulation abilities, says the broadcaster, have never shown quite the potential of this plant. It's a game changer for gold mining, provided we can propagate it, says one ecologist, the one the governor hired. The news broadcast says early attempts to culture and propagate the plant have so far been unsuccessful, but they are working on it. And the governor goes out to the hole where the plant was and starts to dig around in the soil, where she finds a few tiny sprouting seeds and thinks, well, I guess I'll just call you Precious. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. That story was it felt like it was like from a different dimension, where the politicians are the good guys and then the ecologists are the bad guys. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you on Monday for Feedback Monday. We'll do feedback on Monday. Why not? Bye.